So we want to create 4 factions.
You're allowing more fluidity in the system.
That this is a paradigm shift.
Welcome to the FiNC Tank podcast. Today, we're talking with America's Main Street Party about how citizens can take back the primary process and pick who reaches November's election.
Yep, and digital politics isn't just a theory, it's already here in the wild. Citizens are hungry for new options, new rules of the game, new tech that works for them, and America's Main Street Party is one of the clearest examples of that shift in action.
And we're here to talk about when citizens choose the candidates, they're going to win in November.
And to frame this conversation, think of FiNC as a civic utility. Our job is to help standardize a fair, citizen-led democracy using a new lens called digital politics. Up versus down, people first versus power first. We're also moving into phase 2 with the Digital Politics Hub, where citizen-powered efforts like America's Main Street Party can plug in and coordinate.
Yeah, and we can't change the rules overnight, but we can change how we use them. America's Main Street Party is a great example of using today's rules differently, so citizens, not parties, decide who reach the ballot. We talk about this a lot in our organization, that the laws are very hard to change. So here we're changing what we can. We're controlling the controllables.
Absolutely. And let's start with the problem. Tom, from your perspective, what's broken about how we choose candidates today?
Well, I think we all know that our primary system is rigged, to reelect incumbents. And because of that, there's really no accountability. So what I've said is that our voice really isn't silenced on election day. Our votes are stolen when legislation appears before Congress, and super donor money is basically teased out for legislators for their reelection bid. They know if they toe the line for the party, they'll get the money that assures that they'll win reelection. And that's really where the system is broken. We can have as much ranked choice voting, open primaries, we can get overturn Citizens United, but until we change the way we select the candidates, it's really a broken system that won't get better. It just gets worse.
Yeah. It's the classic rig pattern that we always talk about with our digital politics lens. The system quietly decides who's viable before we even hear their names, before primaries even talked about and started. They already pretty much know who they want as their candidate. Sometimes they don't always win, but it's like 90-95% of the time their pick is the one that wins. Sometimes we'll get somebody that rises out of nowhere, but it's definitely both. It's the party gatekeeping, the money's on their side, the establishment media is on their side, so it's just a completely unfair advantage, and citizens don't really get their choice there. So when we use this people first lens of digital politics, looking at it down serving candidates instead of supporting up serving candidates, we're really asking, how do we make the competition fair so the best candidates rise on merit instead of money? And America's Main Street Party is one of the people first rules, or putting the people first rules around making a more fair primary and then general election.
Awesome. Tom, for someone who is just hearing about America's Main Street Party for the very first time, can you go into what is it? How does it work? What is your mission, goal?
Well, one thing, we hope that people don't really think of it as a political party. I mean, we are a tech company masquerading inside a political party. The reason for doing that is that we want the person that emerges from our free and equal contest to automatically be on the general election ballot. So by packaging this app and portal within the construct of a political party, it allows us to kind of sidestep the public primary and create what's the people's primary that the citizens will basically choose the candidates. So very unique. We're not doing that. The parties do choose their own candidates, but it happens in backroom. Think of this as kind of a test the waters committee where the entire district is allowed to participate and go through a multi-round competition to select their candidate.
Yeah, that's so amazing. I mean, that's exactly what we talk about here about upgrading democracy. You know, you're not asking to change the laws. You know, that's kind of futile at this stage. We need better candidates
Mhm.
before we could change those laws. Um, but so you're changing the process, the candidate selection process, leadership selection process. And you're saying, you know, build a people first party where the citizens are in full control.
Yep.
You know, like you say, you don't stand for specific policies or anything like that. That's up for America to decide. That you're going to go into that district and they decide, you know, left, right, whatever, wherever they want to stand. It's up to them instead of the party. So that's like, you know, exactly like a people first system. And
Yeah, it's
real.
a party built on technology, not ideology. You know, our mission is to deliver a fair process, and as that level playing field, we can go after the left and right equally, and kind of try to carve both parties in two. We want to create four factions. You know, I think that Adams, our second president, warned that the biggest peril of our Constitution was for us to evolve into two great parties, and here we are.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, you know, so many people say like you know, you can't put us in just these two boxes. So, you know, what you're saying is you're saying four boxes or like four different shapes. And then even then, you know, things never are that simple with humanity. So there'll be different, you know, you're allowing more fluidity in the system. And that's another thing that we talk about here is that politics needs to be more fluid and more adaptable to what the people want. Um, in a way
Well, I
that's
think it's really the four factions are going to be the left and right factions that are tied to big money, and the left and right factions that are not tied to big money, that really are accountable to the people. And we want to continue to increase the size of that faction that is working in a system where the people choose. You know, one of the things that, you know, you asked about, how do people understand this party? You know, you think about parties finding candidates. We're not going to do that. We're going to find districts where we feel this system can win. And fortunately, it was designed to really combat gerrymandering. So we're looking at certain numbers and trying to spread this contest across 20 red, 20 blue, what are currently considered uncompetitive districts. And it's, instead of trying to break it by the opposition party, which nobody's ever going to vote for in those districts, is to create an independent center left, center right candidates in these districts that the people will choose, that they know is just accountable to them. So the key to this system too is that the candidates are not allowed to amass a war chest. Part of the deal of competing in the contest and getting basically the prize money, which is a general election campaign, is they have to agree that at the end of the general election cycle, they'll give up that what's ever left in their campaign fund. They either spend it all, which probably most people will do, or if they've left over, they can actually give it back to the local nominating committee that will need to basically stay in operation every election cycle to make sure that, you know, you don't, this doesn't work if you do it once. It's, you got to make people go through what we're calling Wilson's fountain over and over again.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds so fantastic. I mean, you know, so whatever language you use, like, well, so I would say that like there's the upserving party, like the upserving left, upserving right, and downserving left, downserving right. So you're doing the downserving
Exactly.
sides. Um, yeah, that's so great. And again, this is not about changing laws. You don't need permission from the legislators to do what you're doing. You're working with the current system, but framing it differently, really.
Yeah, and just to put it in context, people say, "Oh, where do I download the app?" I mean, this effort is, I wouldn't say it's at its infancy. I look at this more like my background is in business and doing product development. And the very first phase when you come out with a new product is go through what we call proof of concept. And we feel that we've completed that. We're working with college students have kind of launched this thing on a shoestring, but we've written specs and had students investigate the FEC regulations. Some law students from Penn, Drexel kids developed a prototype. Different students from around Philadelphia colleges, Haverford, Temple, have all participated in this project. So it's been fun. One thing about working with young people is that they actually believe change is possible. Most people my generation have just lost faith.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, you know, in a lot of ways, we're both kind of in a similar stage, FiNC and what you guys are doing. And our proof of concept is kind of complicated because we have there's a lot of moving parts to it, but kind of in some way our relationship with you guys and how we want to amplify what you guys are doing and plug you into a larger picture is part of that proof of concept in itself. You're basically doing a live demo of what FiNC envisions for people's primary and using the current system to give regular people their first say instead of donors and party insiders. So it's just, yeah, it's really, really great what you guys are doing.
Yeah, like I think you said on your website, you can't fix the system. You got to work within it. And I think that's the one thing that we're uniquely trying to do is to more or less say, okay, you can't change these laws, or you're basically fighting them in their turf. You do not want to fight them in their turf. Yeah. And what do they say? If you find yourself in a rigged game, change it. And that's, what we're doing. I mentioned Wilson's Fountain. A lot of this is based on James Wilson, who's a founding father. He basically was the person who handwriting the Constitution was in when it came out of the Committee of Detail. He's the person who added the words "and equal" to was formerly the pre-election clause, which dates back to the 1689 English Bill of Rights. But his thought was it wasn't enough that everybody should be able to run for office. If it wasn't fair, the whole system was going to get messed up. And he referred to free and equal elections as the fountain of democracy. And if they aren't pristine, the whole system gets poisoned. And this is basically where we are today, that we have a very unfair election system, big money controls it, and it's made its way all the way through every branch. And almost now the administrative state is being completely poisoned by politics.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, you're touching on the thing of like we say this, I think too, that some people are like, how are you going to take the establishment, billions of dollars? How are you going to take us head on? It's like, we're not. We're basically bypassing the establishment. We're going around what they're doing. We don't have to hit them head on. We just need to beeline directly to the citizens, show them something more fair, more representative, something that they would benefit from. And then, we're kind of labeling the establishment stuff as noise. It's distractions, misinformation, BS, performative. So this just totally gets around, you don't have to take it head on. You just have to worry about our own relationship with citizens.
You need more channels, basically, to get a movement going. There's collaboration. We're looking at a piece of it, a very focused piece of it. And even when we're looking at just a house, we're only looking at 40 races. So, we feel like this is our incremental approach. And now we're moving into what we call a development phase. We've been working with an organization called the Digital Democracy Project. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they're in Florida doing kind of more of the back end. This needs to be a full circle thing, not just about electing who works for the people, but keeping them tied into the people. And that's what Ramon Perez is doing with the Digital Democracy Project. They are connecting Florida legislators with voters in that state. And we're looking at putting our contest on top of their platform to basically accelerate through the development project. So originally I was thinking, we'd have to handle things like user security and identification, all that technology. There's a bunch of organizations, some for profit, some not, that have built mobile voting tools. That's not a wheel we need to reinvent. That part, as far as doing secure mobile voting, there's a lot of options out there now. Yeah. Our unique thing is this contest and basically creating a campaign portal where, the candidates can have if they get a position paper on, they all get the same number of characters. If they're producing a public service announcement video, they're on the same number of sections. If they have a little campaign button or bulletin board that they're developing, they get the same number of pixels. So the whole idea is that the portal is a free and equal way for them to compete, and the constituents will see everybody in a similar format, so it'll make the comparison a lot easier.
Yeah, that all that makes so much sense. I mean, it's part of the point that I'm trying to make when I'm talking to other people and going on other podcasts and stuff, that like you said, that the tech already exists. This is kind of like in a lot of ways an inevitability that there's civic technology all over the country, and really their biggest problem is just that citizens don't know about it. It's really about the marketing and campaigning on these concepts. And so that's where FiNC wants to come in, of being like the connective tissue, kind of be almost like the PR for these different technologies, help these integrate better, help citizens know about what you guys are doing. Because like you said,
it's so valuable to, I'm sorry to interrupt, but they're so valuable to have an organization like FiNC that is basically endorsing, because people don't trust. And you find that, you know, there, especially as you become a hub for all this information, that people can use that as a trusted source, and they'll know that you'll be screening out organizations like us if we're not legit. But I do see this as being a very collaborative effort. Like I said, we're trying to leverage what the Digital Democracy Project's done. You know, I wouldn't be responsible if I didn't tell people to go and see the demos. And there's also video on our website, mainstreetparty.org. I'm not asking for donations. I wouldn't do that on your show. But go to Main Street Bureau to see the demos, see the prototypes, get a visual. Under the nominating process page, it basically describes how this contest plays out over a 6-week period of time. We use a thing called approval voting in the first round to eliminate from a large field down to a smaller one. Approval voting allows you to basically vote for everybody you approve of. And then when we get to a top 4, we're going to have a virtual town hall, and people to use ranked choice voting to get to a top 2, not a top 1. And then when we have a top 2, we'll have a final debate and people pick one. So the winner will always have more than 50% of the vote. And that's the way elections are supposed to work.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. No, I love that. Yeah. So, you know, it's, and like you said, the collaborative effort, I know, like, it's funny because a lot of organizations, political organizations, movements are saying they need to work together, but then they have their litmus test, and there's just so many ways that they end up dividing. So it's been hard. I think you've been through this too, that there's challenges where people, they say they want to work together, but then they don't. And then, like, you know, they want to be in control of different things. So that's part of like what we're trying to overcome, those kinds of challenges. So it's good that you're working with like Digital Democracy Project. We actually need to eventually get in touch with them too, and start figuring out how we're gonna connect. Because you know, obviously there's a lot of interconnection there.
I want to brag a little bit more about the way this contest works, because we're doing some really neat things. These kids came up with a cool idea, but one of them is called the issue indicator. You know, you use single voter issues in this country. We're going to make sure that our candidates take position on 7 issues. 2 global, 3 national, 2 local. The local nominating committee will help in picking what those local issues are. And the candidates must weigh in on their positions. It'll be, you know, one of 3 positions or 4 positions. They'll be able to elaborate on those positions too. But the way this works is that the constituents will be able to go in and basically weigh in on those same 7. It'll bring back what we're calling a perfect align. So imagine if this is a free contest, a lot of people enter. There might be 75 candidates. How do you narrow that down? So in our demo, we show that in a field of about 100, 17 perfectly aligned. And you don't have to look at them. You say, I want to endorse all 17. Go through, let's see who gets to the top 20. Now maybe it makes sense. I get 7 of my perfect alignments come through in the top 20. I could look at them, or I could just let it ride. You know, so we want to make it so it has to work for lazy Americans, because we got a lot of lazy Americans. So it has to be easy. But at some point, you're going to get to the point where you say, hey, maybe I don't get 7 of 7. I get a compromise. What's 6 of 7? But if we get people voting on 6 or 7 issues from 1, I mean, that is a big, big step forward.
Yeah, no, I love that. I mean, it just bringing transparency at the forefront. You know, what do these people actually stand for? You know, like right now with the you know, establishment candidates, they beat around the bush. They don't really give exactly what they plan to fix. Things like, oh, better healthcare, better wages. Okay, what does better mean? Where's the line? You know, so you're talking about like really pushing them to land on a very specific stance and solution.
And the issue is more and more constituents complete that issue indicator for that district. We're going to get a really accurate profile, what they really want. And that was really what, you know, Ramon is doing with the Digital Democracy. So they're doing that on individual pieces of legislation. So now they're getting down to very, very specific things. Ours are more generally where people sit on issues. But, you know, I think the country's more pink and baby blue than they are ruby red and navy. And that's the part that we're trying to carve out and elevate those candidates. You know, in a typical election system, you want diversity. of candidates in the field. We actually don't. We want everyone. Well, I'd like the final to be, or the semifinal to be 4 people that are at the center of the bell curve for that district. And now you're really getting nuance, or that, if the first place person has to drop off, the second place person is pretty close to the first place person. That if it's working like an Olympic trial, right, you would be okay with the second place person if the other one hurts their leg.
Yeah, I guess that's a very different alignment, but that totally makes sense.
In the general election, there'll be other types of candidates.
Right.
I don't mind the fact that people say this is going to moderate the candidate. It's like, yes, I mean, our current system extremes our candidate. Let's have something that counterbalances that.
Yeah. All right, cool. Yeah, that makes sense.
It's math. It's to me, I'm an engineer. I'm looking at it's like a math problem, and
cool. Let's get to the next one.
Awesome. So let's dive a little deeper into the human aspect of it, Tom. How does this all change voter behavior? Can you walk us through what's different for a voter when something like America's Main Street Party exists in their district?
Well, we want to change the constituent experience. I don't think that voters are treated like customers. They really don't care. I mean, the parties spend money on technology. What is it doing? Bombarding your cell phone with a request for $3 or $6 or whatever. And they're not really using technology to gather information about what their constituents actually want, because it might not be what their super donors want. So, I mean, that is number one, is that we think we'll succeed because we're treating them like customers, and that our product is the quality of representation. So, if we're going to get that product and quality, we got to listen to our customers and give them what they want. And I think that the whole thing is like just turning this thing around, because we do that. The parties can't compete with that. Just can't compete.
Yeah. I mean, we always talk about how like approval ratings are at all-time lows right now for both parties. And yet they're like almost guaranteed to get reelected, even though people don't approve of them, because they're just stuck in this system, unless they're too evil.
Because they hate, they're way better than the person that they hate on the other side.
Right.
So as long as the competition is terrible, you can put out a pretty bad product.
Yeah. It's horrible. It's just like the bar just keeps getting lower and lower between the two sides. So this is exactly what people need. And like you said earlier, like the phrase I use is like, people don't want politics to be their second job. They need it to be easy. They need it streamlined for them. And show me what I need to know. Show me so I can make my own decision for myself, for the best interest of me, my family, and whoever. And it's so possible now with technology, and it's just the establishment doesn't want it to be that simple. They don't want that transparency. They don't want more competition. And so we kind of have to take it from them on the grassroots end of all this.
Travis, my inspiration, I was just thinking about, came about 10 years ago when things really started to get wacky. And I thought for about 5 minutes running for the U.S. House seat that was opening up that Connor Lamb eventually ran for. And I say 5 minutes because it was really, why on earth would I want to go into Congress? Well, you know what I mean? Like, this would be, why would I want to do that to myself? And that is really what made me think we have to change it, from the outside, that if I'm going to contribute anything, it should be not going to Washington, D.C. It should be, being outside the dome and coming up with a solution that is, completely outside the box.
I've heard that so many times that like there's such wonderful people that would run as a candidate in different races, and just the system is so brutal and so not what it should be, that it just keeps all the good people out, and then the only ones that are in are the ones that want to make money off of it, power. It's all about their greed and their egos, and like you have to be slimy enough to want to play politics right now.
And half of them are people that just inherited fortunes, and bought their way in, or they're working for people that inherited their fortunes. I mean, it's really not a government of the people. We have to change it.
Yeah. I mean, we're totally no longer really in a democracy. there's so many studies that kind of show that thing. There's the Economist says that we're considered a flawed democracy in terms of like the rating levels. So, at least the infrastructure to be a democracy is there. Like our vote does count. It's just we're manipulated into a false choice, and that's where we're losing our democracy. Yeah.
We are so close from breaking this. This was stunning to me that nobody thought of this idea. Probably because most people that would be looking at it had money, and they're like, maybe I'm willing to change it this way.
Yeah.
Like how many times in Harvard Law School did nobody come up with this?
Right. Yeah. And another thing with the tech too, though, is like I've seen some organizations where like they see themselves as just a tech company, and they've done not what you guys are doing, but they've done like political social networks, kind of closer to what we envision as digital democracy, but been at least like 15 organizations that tried and failed. But their problem was they were just handling it as, oh, here's the tech. They're not instilling the implications of what this could do. It's like, oh, here's an app that could help you, decide who you want to vote for. But they're not like, this could change the system. This could add more transparency, accountability. This can, really bring a healthier democracy. They only saw it as a tech tool, so like both our organizations, yours and ours, are very like, we're all about the people side. Like I know you say this, you're not the one that's going to like be doing the coding. You're not the tech side. You're really the people side, the politics side, the social side, right?
Yeah. And again, it's just whether you want to get involved in running for office or fixing the system. And like I said, I think the need here is really fix the system and create this level playing field. And I think this can be game changing.
Yeah, totally. And then even with that, like we've been trying to instill to people that like there's politics and then there's democracy. Democracy is like looking at the system as a system that we could redesign. And like we don't always have to go to politics. What's your stance on healthcare? What's your stance on immigration? This or that. It's like, let's worry about the system itself. That's what's crumbling. And if we could fix that, everything will slowly work itself out. There'll be, there'll be less of these extremes, less of the misinformation. People start getting more of what they want. And so they won't be so desperate if like there's something that they don't get, but they're like, well, you know what? I got 3 out of the 5 wins. I'm okay if the other side gets these other 2 wins for now. Like, it's just, right now it feels like I get nothing, so I fight over everything. I need to fight to the death to get anything I can get, because it's like we all feel like we're losing everything. So this would change that.
I mean, it's to the point where the one side can't support what the other side wants, even if it makes sense. Yeah. And you see people. One administration wants an infrastructure bill, and the other one doesn't want to pass it because they want credit for it. I mean, this is just crazy intramural sports that they're dealing with, and our health and livelihood is on the line.
Yeah,
it's a shame.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Absolutely. So, Tom, we talked a little bit about this, but America's Main Street Party and FiNC, they share a lot of DNA around repurposing the current system instead of waiting for new laws and just hoping and praying that happens. Tom, from your perspective, how does the digital politics lens or the idea of digital democracy support what you're trying to build with America's Main Street Party?
Well, the fact that we're a purely digital platform, I mean, just kind of reinforcing that message is so important for us. And I think really connecting to this generation, has higher expectations of what you can do with technology. And I think also kind of, I don't know, I think there's kind of some old school thinking around like voter IDs and thinking like that I think right now, if you ask even more progressive younger people, they're like, why are we still fighting this battle over photo? People do this for everything. It's so secure. It's just a matter of time where they must be a little bit older than me, but there's going to be a generation here that just kind of phases out, that doesn't have the familiarity with this technology. One of the things I thought about, future is now. When I originally sat down to think about this, it was kind of that future is now kind of thing. Like, what if I landed on this new continent and had to start from scratch. Am I starting with this system? What am I doing? And I really did this whole kind of engineers always want a greenfield situation where they're going in and nothing exists. And that was kind of where I started with. And it wasn't until I ran it by a friend of mine who was a constitutional lawyer who said, hey, this is like got founder stuff, free and equal election clause. I really didn't even know which constitution it was in when I started this. I mean, that's how far back I had to go with my American history. But all this stuff connects. I mean, history is now, future is now.
Cool.
Okay. Let's kind of zoom in to the voter experience. Let's say, Tom, that I download the app in a future cycle. What does my journey as a voter look like from discovery to actually helping someone that I want to put my vote behind win a race?
Yes. Well, one thing, that we have to consider is I think typically people think parties, they think parties find candidates, and that's not going to be our approach. We're going to find districts. And we're also looking at recruiting a super PAC, basically be our marketing department. So as a constituent, you would either be in one of these districts or not. Let's assume you are, is that you're going to find out through public service announcement that the America's Main Street Parties contest is coming. And if you want to learn about how the application works, what we plan to do is run simulated elections in the districts on like a weekly basis using avatars as candidates, not real people. So that it'd be a way for people to get download, run through the cycle, be familiar with how you find the candidates, how you sort. But the idea is that by the time the contest comes up, there's already going to be confidence in that community that the system works. And if it doesn't work, we're not going to release it. No decent business puts a product out that has all kind of problems with it. So, if we miss the 26th election cycle, it's better to do something that works, has quality, than to lose confidence, especially on something like this. But what we would envision is that people would be able to download it, experience it. We could run these simulated contests in districts where we're not going to run the contest. The different experiences that people outside the district will not be able to have any say whatsoever in this. This is a private contest between the district and the candidates. The only people who can endorse are folks in the district. If people outside the district want to help, they could donate to the committee, not yet to the candidates, because the candidates won't have committees until after the contest. Or they could donate to the super PAC. But the idea is to not keep a minimal amount to the candidates and keep it more in the public, this general super PAC pool or the nominating committee pool, which is running the contest.
Yeah, so that's so important what you're saying there. So for everyone to make sure everyone's understanding this, the current system, the way it works is like, if corporations, wealthy people are able to give thousands, tens of thousands, sometimes like $1 million towards a campaign, it's illegal to say like, you do this for me, but there's always a quid pro quo. They know they're getting a return on that investment. So the fact that you're shutting that part of the system out, you're not allowing them to it's basically legal bribes. That's what it is. And, you're shutting that out.
It's, they want a national agenda for their faction. Yeah. And they're more or less saying that that's why we have these huge bills that, include, because they're all horse trading. It shouldn't work that way. These things should be standing on their own, and they don't. They can't. A lot of this legislation can't. And it's hard, for 99% of us to believe that we should have this trillions of dollars of debt passing on to our kids. Like, that just makes no sense at all, that in a country with these kind of resources that we can't figure out how to balance budget. Imagine if there's a great school district in your city and they can't manage their budget. You'd laugh, right? I know wherever you live, there's, people where wealthy people live and there's a lot of money. They are not running huge deficits.
Yeah. It's just it's insane. Yeah, it really is. In a normal world, like everything that both parties have been doing is just so beyond unacceptable. Yeah.
We have to fix the money. To fix the money.
Awesome. So let's start talking about underdogs, right? So what path does America's Main Street Party create for grassroots candidates who would never get a shot in the traditional primary process?
Well, like I said, they can use the campaign portal if they pick carefully the issues they align with, and that aligns with the center of the district or 6 of 7. That's going to catapult them. The other thing is that the system's going to have what we call trending leaderboards. So, if people are out there, they're going to be the contest opens up. There's going to be a big push on to get a lot of endorsements. So if somebody's trending, people will be able to see that on the trending leaderboard. So there's different tools that these young folks have thought about, like what will make this more engaging, what will help people find their candidates, designing this in a modern way. I had my own perception of how the candidate's profile page would look, but having somebody who's 20 years old, 21 years old, design that, he obviously had a very different perspective. It's a lot better, actually. But, because familiar with the tools since he is, very young.
Cool. But yeah, so you're really talking about like an equal stage, a level playing field. Any candidate could put their hat into the race, and it's really about their merit and being and getting voters to resonate with them. That voters like what they're about, and like you touched on, the beauty of this is how we see a more direct democracy as well, is that instead of like I belong to this party, so these are my policy stances. You're talking about looking at the district, what does that district want, and then build your policies around what the district wants. Like that's democracy. That's being representative. Yeah. That's a republic. That's what we are meant to be.
And the role for underdogs, I think, here is that right now when an independent candidate goes on, their only time they get to prove themselves is in the general election. Now we're more or less saying that, hey, we could be having 30, 40, 50 candidates and survive. The one person who survives this 5-round competition is going to be there. They look like a winner. There's somebody the goal is we outdraw the primary, especially in these, midterm elections. You could be looking at trying to get a district that has 100,000 people participate. I'm going to throw some numbers at you. We're thinking about having every potential candidate that enters the contest get 100 endorsements. So you get 100 of your friends and family to download the app, endorse you in advance of the contest, in addition to providing your financials, all the stuff that we would do to make sure you're who you say you are. If you have 75 candidates, 100, that's 7,500 people on the app before we start. Plus, we're going to do the test marketing and have people on. So, if everybody that's in this is now pushing to make that top 20 in the first 2 weeks, there's going to be a lot of people downloading the app. So we see happening is that, hey, if we can get to like 20, 25,000 people by the first elimination, now we got momentum. Now we got traction. This is interesting. And other people will download it. And it'll be like our version of American Idol, but it'll be for Congress instead of a record contract.
Right. This all exactly.
That was the inspiration, by the way.
Yeah.
It was a joke I made. I said, we do a better job picking the next American Idol, the next U.S. congressperson. And actually, it was really what got me rethinking about how to do this party. Because I was originally going to do kind of a forward party thing, and it just, I was like, nah, this is just more of the same. Rich people, funding their own campaigns.
Yeah, no, it really needs to be new people coming into the stage, people that don't necessarily have money, but they're like community leaders and, they're just trusted people in their own communities and people, they just have something about them, and it's not the money and something else about them that, appeals to the citizens and you're giving them that chance to really, have a voice and then rise up the ranks through their voice.
Maybe too an opportunity for like somebody in the opposition party to connect with their voters, and maybe they're going to run for a state house seat or something like that, and that's free. So, this is a way for people to get their, if they want a career in politics, and another one of those underdogs might be looking down the road of what they do to get their Q rating up. This is a way to do it, and it could have lasting effects into other types of offices that they may choose to go. Just like these other people in America, the second place finished, third place, they had a lot, they careers themselves because of the exposure. Yeah. $0, and the idea is the super PAC will promote how the system, they're almost like our our ad council, that's telling voters how to interact with the system, train them, what to do, where to go.
Yeah, great. Yeah.
It can work. It can work, and it's
Yeah.
legal.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we zoomed into the voter experience. So let's now zoom out. America's Main Street Party is one of several new efforts trying to modernize democracy with technology. So Tom, where do you see this ecosystem going over the next few years?
Gosh, I hope it involves us. We plan on being a player in the space. I think that is big. I think mobile voting is happening, and I think that a lot of folks, and I believe this too, the more people that participate in the system, the more it moderates the system. I still think that money is a very big problem that isn't being addressed by anything other than what we're doing. But I think it's about technology. I do think it's about organizations like FiNC that provide the hub. I think that there needs to be more collaboration. I think bringing these separate efforts together, integration is probably what we should be looking at over the next few years.
Yeah, that's exactly, you just landed on it. It's about that working together and integration. We're releasing our digital politics hub in January. It's a coordination hub, and we're really calling this, we're moving into the coordination phase where we want to line up organizations like yours, Digital Democracy Project, others that are doing civic technologies, and really bridge those divides, bridge those differences. Like, hey, we could work together. We may fight over specifics on healthcare, immigration, whatever, but we all want true representation. We want money out of politics. We want citizen representation. Let's just focus on that. And so this hub that we're launching right now is going to hopefully prop you up as well. You'll be on there, and other organizations that we're starting to trust and build allies with. And really just get all of us kind of help each other amplify each other's messages, make it known to the mainstream public that this is happening. This is an inevitability. A digital democracy is inevitable. It is inevitable, but the question is who's going to control it. We want to ensure the citizens are in control, not big tech, not party gatekeepers. It's all about the citizens. So, trusted voices like yourself, that's we want to build this network of people that are truly there for the citizens and not for power and money.
Absolutely. And now that we've talked a little bit more about the tech, let's quell some fears that might pop up. Whenever we bring technology into democracy, people worry about biases and capture, and that should be on their mind. But Tom, can you go into what kind of guardrails and safeguards are you thinking about when it comes to America's Main Street Party?
Well, number one, I mean, the contest is pretty simple. I mean, we're just matching up with, 7 times, possibly 28 different outcomes. All the folks that would be in it they're allowed to be on social media to talk to the press. And, if anything's unfair, they're able to do that. Then the nominating, I like to describe it as a system of checks and balances. The nominating committee has a role, the party has a role. The party can say, hey, that nominating committee did not execute this contest in a way we're going to invalidate it, and then the super PAC doesn't back the winner. The super PAC can say, you know what, we don't get at least 50,000 people participating in this contest, we may not back the candidate. So there's a way to more or less say that because these are separate organizations, they can bring some controls into it. It's not one big hub that's controlling the whole thing. There's also the opportunity to do really novel things. One of the things we thought about was the idea of a polling location and doing it as a virtual polling location. If you think about the origins of a polling location, is the idea that you'd walk up and is your neighbor, they'd know you or not know you. That's so small. But with computers, the polling locations got so big, it's just impossible for anybody to know everybody that's at their polling location. But with technology, we could create a virtual polling location. It could be an apartment building. It could be your apartment building that shows everybody who's either registered, voted, and then you can say, hey, I saw you registered. That's not me, or yes, that is. But those kind of things, when you make data present and you allow people exposure to that, that's how you build confidence in the system, integrity. And I figure this is a way that you can have all the conspiracy conspiracy theorists do all your data checking.
Yeah.
Give them access. Hey, find here's the virtual polling location. Go find our fake people.
Yeah. That's so great. But yeah, just it really emphasizes the importance of, like, you know, what all of us are doing is really people powered. We need citizens involved, citizen oversight in all these kinds of things. You know, but long as Americans are participating, they're open to this newer way of doing things. Like, you know, there's, you know, America has always had a history of people respecting democracy, wanting to be part of it. There will be plenty of people that are going to take those kinds of roles and are willing to do those kinds
Right.
of things. So yeah, it's a great
There's and get to the real tech part of this is that the Digital Democracy Project is teaming up with a organization called Votes. Votes is a commercial app. The gentleman who does that developed it. Won a blockchain competition with the government to figure out how to allow, like, people on submarines or in combat zone where you can't get a piece of paper out, how to allow them to vote. And this technology is now being used in other states where just people can't get to the polls. And it uses face recognition and encrypts onto the phone, and can be audited. And I mean, the progress that they've made in security and mobile voting. I know people think that it's going to be hacked, but my day job, I own an accounting company. We are hosting all kinds for hundreds of companies, and trust me, we're being attacked thousands of times a day, and we're able to protect that. The voting thing happens like once every few years, and it's not worth any money. And our election system's so rigged anyway. Why would anybody come in and fix it? That just seems so ridiculous.
Right. Yeah. Good point.
Cool. So let's keep going into the friendship that FiNC and America's Main Street Party has. So as the Digital Politics Hub comes online, which is this coordination space that FiNC is building, like Travis said, it's going to drop in January. Tom, how do you imagine something like America's Main Street Party interacting with that hub? And in addition to that, what excites you about having a shared place where citizens, reform organizations, independent media, and underdog candidates are all plugged in to one shared space?
I mean, this is really what I think the frustration is in the movement. It's so hard to reach voters, reach constituents, people that care in this space. I think getting back to my business analogy, new technology, new products succeed because of early adopters. And what I see you guys doing is finding those early adopters, because they're the people who are going to be curious about those things. The early adopters are those who then brag to the people that they drag along with progress. But to me, that is such an essential role, that there's a clearinghouse for this type of information. And like I said, that there's it's hard to promote yourself. I mean, I'll do it, but you want to be in a kind of format like this. And I know that, being on a podcast before, that's at least donations. People want to see that that somebody else is basically backing, endorsing what you're doing, and you can't really get anywhere without money.
Yeah, it's true. So yeah, what like what you're talking about, just getting on, like our big thing is really bridging the divide between like the social media world and the political world, because there's surprisingly a really big gap still with that. And so like you're doing and we're doing, going on other podcasts, having our own podcasts, things like that, like anything to do with social media content to spread awareness, bring people into this fold, bring the awareness that this is even happening is key. So that's kind of where we see ourselves kind of bridging that awareness into social media and that side of the world.
I don't know if you're experiencing this on social media, but I've noticed like people love complaining about stuff on social media or picking out stuff. But in terms of actually exporting something like that's new and different, like I'm not getting as many likes and shares that I would hope to get. And I do think that people are afraid to kind of stick their neck out. So I think what you're doing is really important in that context, is that, this is a place where everybody can stick their necks out and say, here's how it all plays together. And there's definitely some comfort in numbers and knowing that there are other folks working along the same direction, because this is a pretty lonely space. working election reform.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so we've said this before, but we want audience to hear it. That America's Main Street Party is one of the clearest examples we've seen of people's primaries in action. Not it's still working itself out organically, but FiNC plans to grow Digital Politics Hub to explore these kinds of concepts. What you guys are doing, digital democracy as a whole, putting these existing puzzle pieces together into one hub, one coordination space for citizens to find it and be part of all these. So we'd love to keep looking at how efforts like Main Street Party could plug into the future, a future citizen-owned infrastructure. And that's a long game. People picking leaders early and the system actually respecting those choices is what we envision. Yeah.
Awesome. Tom, from where you're sitting, what in your mind is the most helpful thing that an organization like Future is Now Coalition and the people watching this podcast, what can we do to support what you're building, the efforts that you are supplying to upgrading democracy?
Well, the biggest challenge we face is that this is a paradigm shift. I mean, this is a really different way of looking at how to conduct this. And the struggle I have when I talk to people is just getting them to wrap their heads around how different this is. I said that, well, think about it as like having Olympic trials for Congress. And then they're like, oh okay, because then they can identify with this. But to me, yeah, the exposure, getting them to, one thing, we did was we made these videos and demos to get people to pictures worth 1,000 words, a videos worth 1,000,000 pictures, is to get them to look at the video, see how this works, get an understanding of it. Because I think once people get it, then they're like, oh, okay, yeah, this could work. And like I said, no new laws, no court rulings. There's no impediment to us moving forward with this.
Yeah, cool.
Awesome. So all of you out there, if you're watching and thinking, gosh, I want more of this, let's talk about some ways that people can start plugging in to what we're talking about today.
Yeah, so first, you want to definitely check out America's Main Street Party, especially in a place where, if you're in one of the districts that they're going to do their people's primaries. For us, join our newsletter and, keep a lookout for the Digital Politics Hub as we roll it out. That's where citizens and trusted voices will coordinate, highlight efforts that like America's Main Street Party, and co-build the next layer of digital democracy. If you join the newsletter, you'll get an alert when the Digital Politics Hub drops in January.
Yeah, and like I said, I want folks to come check out the website. It's not just mainstreetparty.org. It's also Wilson's Fountain is a place where we describe how we are repurposing the entire political committee system, how we use a super PAC, a national party, local committees, and candidate committees in a very different way. So this is a .us website is really for educational purposes. So this is where a lot of the content and research that our undergraduate think tank did is on the Wilson's Fountain website. And it's named for James Wilson, who added the words "and equal" to the free and equal election clause. So check that out, as well as mainstreetparty.org.
Cool. Yeah, and I want to stress that I know it feels like you have to learn something new, but it's exciting. It'll give you hope, learning more about how this could work, why it makes more sense, why it's fair, why people will jump into this. What they're doing, what we're doing, there's a little bit of a kind of opening your mind, seeing how things could be framed differently, seeing how things could work differently. And actually works for people that are not super political. It's in a lot of ways easier to do this, that you're not already conditioned a certain way, so it's even easier to see how this could work better. But yeah, it's always worth knowing how these things can work. It helps understand why this is not like an impossible endeavor, that why it would make sense. It's fair, and it will spread, it will go viral. So it's a lot of
it's interesting. We've never had like we've been working on this with this. We never have political conversations. I mean, this is really,
right.
it's about a process, and it's so apolitical.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting. So for people that hate that aspect about political reform, I mean, this part, I think, makes it, intriguing to work with.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So adopting the digital politics lens, plugging into the hub, and backing the tools like what is offered by America's Main Street Party that gives citizens the first move. And that is how we begin upgrading democracy together.